I just have to find that. There's the episode.
Are you going to watch the episode as we're talking about it?
No, I'm going to pull it up so that in case you reference a particular scene, I can pull it up and go, no, actually what happened was...
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Whovian Reviewian, the Modular Media Doctor Who discussion podcast. I am your host, Simeon Scott, and I am joined today by Bill Forsyth. How are you doing this evening, sir?
Quite well, actually.
All right, that's good. You're certainly. I'm glad you're doing good, but neither of us are doing as well as Ben, who still couldn't come back and do the show this time. We wanted to get him on because Chris isn't going to be on this episode for currently unknown reasons, but we tried to contact Ben, and unfortunately he had to decline because I don't know if you guys heard, but Queen Elizabeth died a few hours ago, and he's getting ready to be crowned the new King of England. I don't know exactly how that works. I guess they found some unknown ancestry he had or something, but congrats to him. I hope he'll remember the little people when he's on the throne.
And I'll say one thing. If Chris got an invitation to the coronation and we didn't, I'm going to be mightily pissed off.
Yeah, that would be quite the slight, especially because he's never even met Chris.
Yes.
All right. Well, today we're going to be talking about the first episode of Series 4 of the Revived series, which is Partners in Crime, the first episode that sort of brings Donna in as a full-time companion during the 10th Doctor's era. And I think we'll kind of... We're still figuring things out because this is only the second episode of the new version of the podcast, but we're gonna try and have just kind of a general discussion of our thoughts on the episode. Now that it's been quite a while since it came out, and we're sort of looking back on it. And I'm gonna go ahead and let you start us off, Bill. What did you think of the episode this time around?
I have always been a fan of the Donna Noble series, simply because it returns to more of a Doctor companion-esque feel as opposed to Doctor and strange, weird love interest that they keep trying to cram down our throats. Because don't forget,
Yes.
When I saw this episode originally, we had just survived the Martha Jones series, which was...
survived. Like, we're making it out with a bunch of, scars and missing limbs.
But it was one of those where they tried to shoehorn the companion's fallen in love and he doesn't notice kind of ethos into it, that it just didn't work. Mm-hmm. It just didn't work. And then before then we had Rose and Parting of the Ways, which...
Rose is a character type that either really works for you or really doesn't work for you. And I kind of skew towards the really doesn't side, but I don't outright despise her like some people do.
It was more for me that they spent such a big long time doing the love interest thing, and then they of course had to have the Shakespearean tragedy ending, and then they turned around and started doing the exact same thing right over again. And my first response was, why? Yeah. Why? If it was a good idea the first time, it must be a good idea the next 3 times.
Indeed. I also just think this is probably one of the best episodes comedy-wise in the new series. It's kind of just a gag a minute, except for a certain couple scenes I'll talk about later.
That is true.
It's entirely just this one long running gag of the Doctor and Donna Donna is trying to find the Doctor, and the Doctor's just going about his business, and they keep missing each other. There's all these little scenes and clever bits of cinematography of them being in the same place, but just quite missing each other, and that's a lot of fun. Though I have heard people say that it was extremely frustrating because they were like, Donna's back! Donna and the Doctor are gonna team. No, she's right there!
Well, you have to understand as well that Catherine Tate is also quite an accomplished comedian, and she and David Tennant have actually collaborated several times on things. So it was nice to be able to see that side of her be able to come out in a quote-unquote serious program.
That's fair. So what do you think of the sort of plot of the week we have in this episode? The whole adipose thing, which I think was still pretty topical at the time, but honestly feels awfully dated now. And maybe it's just because I'm not quite into TV as much as I used to be, so I don't see fitness ads 5 times every time I watch a show. But
I think in some ways it's still quote unquote relevant because, of course, being in America, there are certain stereotypes that are applied around the world, good-naturedly, of course. But I think that every episode of Doctor Who in some way becomes dated after a while, either for the special effects or lack thereof, or for the subject matter being talked about. Because, take some of the...
and you kind of have both here.
Right. It's true. But take, some of the Seventh Doctor stuff, the... very much social commentary happened throughout some of those episodes that has become really quite dated now. Some of it rather politically incorrect, or correct, much more politically correct, depending upon which side of the bar you're standing on. But we're not going to go into that.
I'll just come out and say it. I think Happiness Patrol is awful, but I've seen people whose opinions on other parts of the franchise I very much respect come out and say, oh yeah, that was really brilliant and really, really cutting of a thing they did there with the Thatcher administration, and I just kind of start slowly backing away.
I'm afraid, irregarding of my political stance on that, I think the way they did it in that particular serial was rather heavy-handed, where they wanted to make absolutely sure that you didn't miss the message.
Yeah.
And so that, in a way, spoiled it for me. But I think this episode still kind of... I think this... Partners in Crime still attacks that very basic of, feelings that we have now, which is one of two things. It's either get rich quick or get fit quick.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, the Procrastinators, a group of YouTubers I'm very much a fan of. They kind of have their free principles you're always striving for in life. Life comes down to 3 basic things: getting hashtag well paid, getting hashtag well laid, and becoming hashtag not fat. And this sort of tackles how silly it can be to boil life down to those things, and doing them at any cost, but also I don't want to put too much work into it. So I'm just going to take this pill that will make the fat disappear, because that doesn't sound...
No, it makes the fat walk away.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's the way they're pitching it, is the fat's just going to disappear overnight, and you won't have to worry about it or lift a finger.
Yeah, no diet, no exercise, no extra effort. It just happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was very interesting for me to watch that sort of product being pitched to people, where now in the last 6 months I've gotten very much into dieting and exercising because I've become a wrestling fan, and now when I watch people with those kind of physiques do amazing shit every week, I go, well, hot damn, I want to look like that. I want to be able to do that. And that was the thing that finally gave me the motivation to actually buckle down and start trying to get fit. And to see people who are kind of I think I would have eventually become were it not for wrestling, who are doing the just take a pill and the fat's gone stuff. It seems very much as laughable as the episode is trying to make it as, but it never quite comes out and makes it a joke because of the whole Dr. Donna thing. It's kind of stuck in the background of what otherwise is a pretty good episode.
I agree, but I also think that it's still... I personally don't think it's the concept is dated at all, because I still see some of these... What was the dieting... the Jenny Craig stuff that it was... I was watching TV the other day, and it came on. They were still saying, you can eat whatever you want and still lose weight. And it's just all right. I'm going to eat wallpaper paste and thumbtacks. I'm sure that will solve all of my problems.
Yeah, and like I said, I think me bringing that up, because I've kind of you and I have kind of talked me out of that question now, but like I just don't watch actual TV anymore. I haven't done that in a very long time. I stream pretty much everything or download it. And so seeing that, now that I've become so disconnected from that culture, was just kind of like, do we still do this? Did this episode become dated, or am I just missing something? And hey, turns out I'm missing something.
Hey, it's funny. I watch more TV when I'm out in a public place that has a TV in the room than I ever do at home, simply because it's much too much trouble to crawl out of the cave to adjust the rabbit ears.
Yes. I also really like how this episode sort of sets up Donna's family, who of course would become a very big part of the show going forward every time.
And whom I actually like.
Yeah, they're actually kind of interesting and relatable on some levels, where like there's that scene where Donna gets back from the sort of opening escapade she's on investigating adipose, and her mom just starts going off on her and goes and goes and goes, and she just sits at the dinner table with a drink and just kind of takes it. And I felt that.
It was like, and that's a generally relatable relationship. But later on, you see her mother. She actually cares for Donna, though. Is the thing is she really does care. She's just kind of sometimes bad at showing it.
It's not just like with a certain other character where she's just a weirdly horny, kind of bitchy, ogre-looking thing. I mean,
I'm not going to second that because I don't like to make those kind of judgment calls on people. However, I admit the character you're referring to was not my favorite just for the way she acted.
Yeah.
But Donna's family in general is one that it's like I could see that being a real family. I mean, I could see that being my family potentially. I mean, that's it's very relatable, and I genuinely like them.
Yeah, especially her grandfather, who I like how they introduce him, because I forgot about this. I love how they introduce him and just say like, "Oh, this is Donna's grandfather, played by Bernard Cribbins, who you may have seen recently in another episode," and then they wait until the end of the episode to go, "Oh, and he's also the same character from last episode who he played." Like, they could have very easily been like, "Look, it's the shopkeeper from that episode. Here's Donna showing the doctor a picture of her with her grandfather," and he goes, "I know that guy." But no, they do it in a much more like kind of subtle and fun way, and I really appreciate that.
I think that's nice.
Yeah. And
there's a lot of, for all of the ragging that we do on Russell T Davies, he actually did write some pretty good episodes.
Yeah.
This being one of them.
There's certain things that he clung to very tight. Davies is kind of is a Vince McMahon when it comes to Doctor Who, where he's got, like, generally he does okay, but there's a few things that he holds on to very tightly and keeps trying to push on to us. And it's just like, no, this isn't good. You're the only one who likes this.
Well, it's not just that. There are a very few themes that he rigorously, as you say, hangs on to. And after the third season, it's just kind of like, I'm tired of this, big buildup and then the immediate Shakespearean tragedy ending. It's like, this is getting old. It's like, I don't mind a good tragedy every now and again. However, when every single episode ends on a low note, it's just like, why?
Yeah, it's like, could you imagine if after they did Adric's death in the Fifth Doctor's era, every time a companion left from that point out on the classic series, it was a big dramatic death scene?
Yeah, and it's just like, but why?
Yeah.
Because I get the fact that, traveling with this person is dangerous. However,
it shouldn't always end in like the worst way possible.
But it's also that is you do that too many times and you start to go numb from it. You start to lose feeling. it starts to not be as bad. I mean, as horrible as that sounds, that's just the way people cope.
Yeah,
And so if you want these scenes to have meaning, to have depth, to have gravity, you can't do them every other episode. Save that for once every third series or something.
Yeah, and it's also just annoying because it makes it very clear that this actor is leaving the show. They're saying they never want to come back, and they're also very expensive, so we're going to make it relatively impossible for them to come back. And it always kind of stings a bit. Like, part of the reason other franchises are so great that have gone on for a really long time and actors come and go is, yes, people leave and it sucks, but you had a good time with them, and except for like every once in a while, there's always that chance of like this person could come back sometime for like an anniversary thing or something. Like, it's not like every season of Power Rangers ends with, and we're taking away your powers, and the source of your powers is going to be cut off from this world forever, and 2 out of the 5 of you are dead, so we're never bringing your cast back.
Yeah. Well, I remember there was a British comedy called "Are You Being Served," which was basically the cast work. It was a department store, right? And it went on for several years, for many years, and there was a reoccurring cast of 6 people, 7 people, between 7 and 8 people. I mean, it was a very small cast, very intimate cast, and they had some changes over the years. But the one time they made a big deal out of it was when one of the original cast members actually passed away, and so it was quite obvious he was never going to come back, and so they did make a big deal out of that one.
Yeah, and that seems totally appropriate to do it.
Makes perfect sense. But every time somebody left, they didn't have this whole long drawn out process where everybody mourns for the whole season. It's just kind of like, it's not, they didn't, you didn't have to kill them, right? You didn't have to kill everybody.
Yeah. This isn't Heroes in Crisis. Hey, topical humor.
Anyways.
But yeah, given all that discussion though, what are your thoughts on already at the beginning of this season, Rose just popping up randomly during that final scene?
My original thought was, do you mean he's actually going to do something nice for a change? He's actually going to give us this one, after all of the trouble that he's written into this show, he's actually going to do something nice? Because it's like it's kind of like the Avengers stuff where they say, "Oh no, half the Avengers can't be dead," and they say, "No, I assure you, their deaths are permanent, right?" And so you always want to think, he didn't really die. We didn't see them die, right? Because Rose didn't die; she's just supposedly trapped somewhere else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, oh no, he's playing the long game. Give it 2 more seasons, they'll come back, right? And everything will be happy with sunshine and roses.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you actually get to that episode, and it's
a massive downer.
I wouldn't call it a massive downer. It's more like putting a Band-Aid on a massive gash on your arm, like a tiny little Band-Aid with flowers on it over this gash that covers your entire arm.
Yeah.
That being said, though, my reaction was like, oh, Jesus Christ, we're doing this? All right. Because that was back when I was in my fuck Rose, I hate this character phase. I've mellowed out on her quite a bit since then. Now I just kind of look at that, like, literally, I had forgotten that was there, so my reaction this episode was like, oh yeah, hey, that was neat of them to do. I like how that sets up stuff that happens later. Good on you there, production team.
I'm trying to remember. I'm afraid my most recent opinion from watching the episode wasn't particularly interesting, simply because I knew it was coming, and it was just like, oh yeah, forgot this was here. Okay.
Yeah.
Of course, I knew it was Anyways, but at the time, I was cautiously optimistic, but that was before I knew the real Russell T Davies.
The real Russell T Davies. That sounds like a really like self-flatulating documentary about him.
Yes.
Somebody make that poster. But so I think we have to go ahead and comment on it. The CGI of the adipose themselves.
Okay, now I think that's being a little unfair. I agree.
I didn't even say anything about them. I just brought it up.
I know what you're going to say, because I know you. But keep in mind, every Doctor Who episode that has ever existed at some point in its history gets criticized for its special effects. And unfortunately, it's funny because animation doesn't age as badly as CGI. Hand-drawn animations don't get this kind of, oh, that looks really kind of outdated. It's when you see a CGI, you go, ugh.
Mm-hmm. Well, the funny thing is, like, I think like a year ago, I would have been like, oh, this is the worst. This is the fucking nadir of special effects in the new series. It's so bad. It's almost as bad as the Absorbaloff's design. I can't believe they let this go on Doctor Who, which at this time was the BBC's biggest show and still is their biggest show. What were they thinking? And now I'm just like, oh, that is charmingly bad. That is peak Doctor Who bad effects that you can get in a newer episode. I like that.
Well, that's always been part of the charm, I thought, was having less than stellar special effects.
Especially the bits where they're trying to make it look like they're crawling out of people's clothes, and it just looks like somebody with a CGI glove had their hand up the actor's back. I really like that. That was hilarious. So what else is there to comment on with this episode? The bit where we actually see Donna get in the TARDIS. That was really great. I like that they just go straight out and establish, like, yeah, we're done with the romance subplots. They're just gonna be friends. Relax. We're not ruining this character, guys.
That was what gave me hope. As I said in my opening remarks, this is what made this episode fantastic for me. Was it's just like, finally we get to go back to the, we're good friends, we work together, we laugh together, and then at the end of the day, we can walk away.
Exactly.
And be satisfied.
So I think that's pretty much all there is to say, because like I said, this is pretty much just a standard episode of the week with a giant and wonderful gag running through the whole thing.
And two very competent actors.
Yes. I almost forgot to bring that up.
Many competent actors, but
David Tennant and Catherine Tate, that's her name,
yes.
Right? Their performances in this episode are absolutely amazing. You can tell they were just so thrilled to be working with each other again, and we're like, we're going to give this our all. We're gonna prove to people that this is this era's definitive TARDIS team.
Which I agree.
And quite a few other people would too. I'm sure Chris would agree if he was here, but I'm guessing he's just on that flight to England or something.
Well, let's see. It's almost coming up to 10:30 now. 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. He's probably in England. The coronation is probably over, and they're probably out having drinks at the moment.
Well, damn. Now I'm even more mad.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine getting to drink with the new King of England? That would be awesome. Oh, well. Bill, how would you recommend this episode? Would you say it's a great starting point? Would you say like it's an okay one to go to after you've been with the show for a while? Must watch? Where in that range would you put this?
If you are intending to follow the plot of Doctor Who, and if you are, my sincere condolences.
Because Doctor Who does not care about its plot except when it does.
Yes, pretty much. It is a definite must-watch, simply because it sets up a lot of foreshadowing for the rest of the season. It is also just plainly a good episode. I would say it is not the best starting point, especially if you are brand new to the series. A, because it is a continuation of Donna's character, who we've already met before a season, almost a whole season ago. So it's there's a lot of addition, of carrying on from where they left off. So there would be a lot of things that you would have missed. However, I would say start at season 1 of the Revive series, because that pretty much gives you everything you need to know. And by the time you get here, it will be well worth your time to watch it.
I definitely agree with that. There's a lot of, this is like a good midpoint in a comic book story arc.
Yes.
It's not going to be like an issue you'd say, oh, you got to go out and pick this one up. There's so much amazing stuff happening here. But for a long-term reader, or watcher, it's very rewarding, and it also sets up a lot of stuff that makes you want to keep going.
Correct. So it would not be, in my opinion, it would not be a starting point, but it should definitely be included once you find a starting point, simply because of the continuity aspect. Mm-hmm. And it's just a good episode.
At the very least, I'd say watch Runaway Bride and maybe like read up on Rose a bit before you watch this. But
yes,
otherwise, it's a pretty solid episode that I would recommend.
I agree.
All right. So, are you ready to find out what episode or story, depending on what era we're in, we'll be talking about next time?
I have had my sip of fortifying beverage, so spin the wheel.
All right. Next time, we are going to be talking about Snake Dance from the Fifth Doctor's era. I literally know nothing about this episode, so I'm kind of excited.
This will be an interesting serial.
How many parts is this, Bill?
Give me 1 moment, and I will find out.
Okay.
I will have to look it up.
Do some wiki-foo and get a bit of info on this before we go in.
Well, I'm not doing a wiki. I'm actually looking up in my list of episodes here. This was Fifth Doctor. Here is Snake Dance is right in the middle. It is 4 parts. Would you like me to read the synopsis?
Sure, why not?
The evil Mara that has possessed Tegan in the episode Kinda controls her once again, diverting the TARDIS to the planet Manusia, the original home of the Mara before it was banished into the outer darkness centuries ago. There, it steals the Great Crystal and tries to use it to cross back into the physical world. Can the Doctor save Tegan and defeat the Mara once again? There's only one way to find out.
Well, that sounds like it's a very similar episode with a lot of continuity informing it. So that'll be interesting to jump into for me, because I've only seen a handful of classic Who, and the only Fifth Doctor episode I've seen is the Five Doctors. So,
well, my suggestion would be go and watch Kinda, and then watch Snake Dance. Right. We will probably have to do some backstory explaining the next time we meet.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next month, though. But for now, Bill, why don't you go ahead and tell people where they can find you on the internet and connect with you and do all that fun brand synergy shit that we like here at Modular?
Well, if you are wondering where you can find me, my suggestion would be is go out into the woods and start turning over rocks. Eventually, you might find me.
Very good. I am Simeon Scott. I make various online video projects. You can find all of my work at thatsimeonscott.com and support me at patreon.com/SimeonScott. I do all kinds of videos. I make lost my speech there for a second. I do a multi-channel storyline of a character called the Vacuuminator and his various cohorts who he interacts with constantly. There's Ranger T, who is a person obsessed with Tommy Oliver from the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and there's a few other characters that I'm planning to introduce in the future. The Vacuuminator himself is just a massive fan of superheroes and talks about them in his videos. I do personal vlog stuff on my Simeon Scott channel, where I also do streams. And if this comes out next week, like I think it will, hey, this Friday night I'm going to be doing a stream where I build the Lego Doctor Who set. So if anyone wants to come watch that, that would be just splendid. And I also do vlogs and stuff on that channel, and I have a fan edit channel, and I've got all kinds of crap, really. I also have a Twitter at that Simeon Scott and a Instagram at the same username. Modular Media, however, though, is the group that produces this podcast. We are a creative collaborative. I'm gonna have to edit that, damn it. We are a collaborative coalition of creators, and we produce many kinds of online media and stuff like that. You can go ahead and get access to more of our stuff by going ahead and subscribing to youtube.com/modularmedia. If you want to listen to our podcasts like this one on the go, you can do that by going to the Google Drive folder linked in the video description and downloading the shows as an MP3. You can follow us on Twitter at the Modular Media, and you can subscribe to our subreddit, which is r/modular media. And that's gonna do it for this episode of Whovian Reviewian. Bill and I will see you next time, maybe with, maybe not with Chris, to discuss Snake Dance, and hopefully not be totally lost in continuity, like we almost were this time. We'll just have to see how that goes. But until next time, bye. I need to come up with a better outro for this show.
And that's the way it was.
Yes.